So now that I've spent like three days practicing nunchucks, like everything else that I spend any time doing, I've absolutely mastered nunchucks. So I am now teaching nunchucks, the art of nunchuckery. So if you want a lesson, feel free to comment or DM or whatever. They're pretty expensive, but I think ultimately fruitful. I'm going to do this first lesson for free. And so you should, just from this video, I'm so generous that I give out the entire system for free. So while I'm happy to give you lessons if you want, it's all right here. So I would suggest getting 2 pairs of wooden or metal nunchucks and 2 pairs of these hard rubber ones. Just a little bit, different. So with nunchucks, it's all about, like, what are you trying to do with a nunchuck? The reason that you have a nunchuck is so that you can smack the living daylights out of somebody. And so what you do with that is you take the flail here, and you want to practice being able to kind of whip it in the direction that a person would normally be standing, right? So the goal of nunchucks is to generate as much power, as much speed, as much force behind this thing as humanly possible, like right where a person would stand. And then if the person is there, then wham, wham, right? Memento. Okay, so yeah, like I was saying, I hope the whole goal of this is to just whip that across the person as much as possible. And so the basic movement patterns is your arms can go in this direction, and so you just want to practice. You want to get good at whipping the thing from any possible direction that your arms might be in. Right? So it's that, and then the basic movement pattern is this. You're taking this stick and you're using it to fling or catapult this stick across or at the person's body so that it lands and it hits the same as if you were kind of whacking them with a short little club. So you've got this short little club at the end of a flail or at the end of a stick, and it creates a flail. And so the mechanics of that is like a whip. So there's a little bit of there's a lot of technique in that little flick, and that little flick gets this thing accelerated to what is basically maximum velocity from almost no real telegraph, not a huge amount of telegraphing, as in like not what you would have to do to hit that hard, but with just tiny little flicks, short little, not very much body momentum, and it just flicks out. That's the attack. That's like the punch, is that wham. And that's the only thing that's going to hurt somebody too. If you just kind of fling it like that, and there's not that, if you're not really cognizant of that technique where the thing is like kind of snapped to where you're basically throwing a wave at the person, and it's made of nunchuck, and it's crashing on them. So not only the nunchuck hits them, but the wave. A bullwhip is like an extreme example of this, to where there's very little whip left at the end, and so you get hit mostly with the wave. That's what a bullwhip, a person throws a wave at you, and the whip carries it, but the whip diminishes, and so it becomes more and more and more wave until boom, the wave hits, the full wave in the tiniest little amount of whip. These stay the same size, so the wave the wave hits, you know, as fast as like the same way that a stick does, but it's accelerated with a whip. It's the same as a staff, but you're accelerating that staff with a chain, and you're accelerating it from sort of a detached tensile connection. And so that's a lot, like, and that's tremendous power, right? That's power. Power is an interesting phenomenon in the sports world. A lot of the times people only generate like strength or speed, but power is kind of like both of those things combined, and it's this nunchuck moving at just tremendous velocity. That's a huge amount of power. It's generating a ton of power per unit of effort on this end. Just because of the way that it's interacting with reality, the way that this sets up reality to where you have a stick at the end of a string or a chain, lets you generate power. So with nunchucks, just like this is your main hit, right? There's really nothing other than that you're going to do that is serving the purpose of the nunchuck, like any sort of tricks that you might know or blah 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 blah. None of that's really serving the purpose of the nunchuck, which is just to wham. Like none of that stuff matters unless you do the wham. And so that's the basic exercise, the basic strength training exercise underneath that. That's the basic goal, is to whack them. The basic exercise under that is power generation. And so when you do this, you're generating power. Just like if you pick something up off the ground, you're kind of generating strength. So if you lift weights, you get strong. If you generate power, there's a similar adaptation and you get powerful. So these things let you actually pick up and generate power way easier. Just like you can get strong, but like squatting with 500 pounds on you, for some reason, lets you generate way more strength and you get stronger over time. These, just like weights, let you generate way more power than you could just doing body weight. And so just like weights, you get stronger over time. So it's like there's just reps, and you can rep like which direction, but you can also rep which body part do you want to practice generating power. And which movement direction, which movement pattern do you want to practice generating power? And to generate power like this requires this flail configuration. So your mind actually adopts this posture, it adopts this pattern. And that also starts to reflect in how you hold yourself or how you move. So you move in such a way that's kind of suspended like this, that lets a ton of power be generated. So you can, and then the body adapts. Just like if you do like calf raises or squats under weight, those parts of you are going to become strong. If you generate power with the assistance of the nunchuck, the part that does that practice is going to become powerful in the exact same way that like you become strong, muscular. You'll have neurological, physiological adaptations to the resistance of the exercise. In this sense, like the body, what is it running into? It's running into power. What does the body have to do to generate power? And people kind of see that as like, it's basically, it functions just like electricity flowing, just like the water flowing. And so power is that that flow, that current of mind and the flow state is being in that current without moving. The flow state is just floating in power. And then moving from flow state generates power. Moving from flow state is a powerful movement. So you can, this is, when they're moving, it's kind of easier to know that I'm in power. I know that I'm in flow state. I'm in the process of, it's the whipping is always happening here. And so those, it's basically power generation exercises that are similar to strength training and cardio. And there's power exercise, there's other ways that people do power exercises with in different systems, different training methods, right? But nunchucks, the flail, is absolutely by far the most accessible means of learning power generation from the flow state, which is from a higher dimensional understanding of the body, or a outside dimensional understanding of the body. The body is a system of things that have like parts that are in different realities. Like this stick is more in the reality of my body than the stick dangling from it. And that freedom, the freedom that this dangling stick has from my body, is what gives it this ability to generate such crazy amounts of force. So yeah, so there's just all sorts of different like exercises you can do with power in terms of which direction do you express it, like how do you restrain it, or like take it back in, how do you deal with it. Just like there's all sorts of different ways you can lift up weights. Okay, so that's all that's going on with nunchuck training, is that nunchuck training is training power. Specifically power through this type of attachment to your implement. The weapon of the nunchuck is this. This is the thing that's separate from the body. This is you. And so that arrangement, that posture of mind that you have to adopt from this is a very, very close approximation of the mind-body connection, which is this is kind of like swimming, right? Like if you're in the middle of it or spinning it, it's swimming, right? Like I can kind of swim back and forth, and like when I'm in this motion, anything that I do affects the whole thing, right? So this is like a fluidic connection, and that's the body-mind connection is more of a fluidic connection, like something floating in something else. This nunchuck is floating in the movement of my body, basically. And from that place where it's floating, then that's when it can behave like a wave. And when your movement patterns start to behave like waves, they start to have like the predictability and the effects of like transmitting. You're not so much like throwing a hoop or kicking a soccer ball to a location using like Newtonian stuff. It's more of like, I'm going to transmit a wave over there, and the ball's just going to express it. And you can just kind of like put things right where you're transmitting the wave to. And so that's ultimately how the mind-body connection works. If it's working correctly. And so yeah, most people, like in terms of nunchuckery, it's like, the greatest adversary is yourself. And so that fight is difficult normally, unless you have nunchucks. And then you can like just smack the bejesus out of like just about anything, including your own delusion. Anyway, so that's not like that's it. That's all. Yeah, you can add a little burst of power to anywhere with these things, with these bad boys. And then you're already automatically reaching into a higher dimensional space just by having an implement tied together like this. It's not a single object. This is two independent objects influencing each other by like a non-physical connection, sort of. I don't know. You could think about it a lot. I might be overthinking it, in fact.